NATO has warned Russia against military buildup near the Ukrainian border as the alliance's chief and U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken met with a Ukrainian delegation in Brussels. The NATO chief has asked Russia to halt amassing of troops near the Ukraine border. The remark came as NATO held an emergency meeting of allied foreign and defense ministers.
Russia's considerable military buildup is unjustified, unexplained and deeply concerning. Russia must end this military buildup in and around Ukraine, stop its provocations and de-escalate immediately.
U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken said that Washington firmly supports the sovereignty and territorial integrity of Ukraine. This comes amid concerns of a fresh flare-up between Ukraine and Russia. The Kremlin has warned the U.S. against sending warships close to Crimea.
The United States stands firmly behind the sovereignty and territorial integrity of Ukraine, and I'm here to reaffirm that with the foreign minister today. And that's particularly important at a time when we're seeing, unfortunately, Russia take very provocative actions when it comes to Ukraine. We're now seeing the largest concentration of Russian forces on Ukraine's borders since 2014. And that is of deep concern not only to Ukraine, but to the United States and indeed to many of our allies and partners.
Ukrainian Foreign Minister Dmytro Kuleba, who held talks with Blinken, said that Russia needed to be made aware of the price for the aggression against Ukraine will be too heavy for it to bear. Earlier, Ukraine said that Moscow refused to hold talks with Kiev.
By gathering today, we try to avoid the mistake that was made in 2014 when Russia was ready to act swiftly and pursue its military goals in Crimea and Donbass, while our Western partners were considering their reactions to what was happening on the ground. Russia will not be able to catch anyone by surprise anymore.
Ukraine has released fresh footage of the military drills at the eastern border with Russia. It has hinted at possible Russian plans to store nuclear weapons in Crimea. This would signal a massive escalation in tensions, including raising the stakes to that of a possible nuclear attack. Our correspondent Lucy Hove joining us from Brussels for more on these developments. Lucy, the entire world has its eyes now on the tensions between Ukraine and Russia. What are you picking up on what is expected as far as the developments are concerned over the next few hours?
Well, we know that there will be a press conference from NATO Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg and the US Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin, as well as the US Secretary of State Antony Blinken, who have been in Brussels for a couple of days now, holding intensive crunch talks with NATO allies, as well as the Ukrainian Foreign Minister, to try and assess the available options to this. At the same time, we have 2 US warships due to arrive in the Black Sea either today or tomorrow in order to put pressure on Russia, with Jens Stoltenberg, NATO's chief, describing the build-up at the border as unjustified and unexplained, calling for an immediate de-escalation of tensions at the border, with that build-up the biggest since the illegal annexation of Crimea back in 2014. So crunch talks, and we know that there has been pressure from Ukraine's foreign minister on NATO allies to take concrete steps to put pressure on Moscow. That includes a new round of sanctions on Moscow, as well as increasing the level of military support to Ukraine. There is already substantial support going into Ukraine, which Moscow has described as turning it into a keg of powder, given the extent to which Ukrainian forces have now now been armed by NATO allies, according to Moscow. So signs of real solidarity between NATO allies, between the EU and the US on this, and very much wanting to show a display of solidarity with this visit to Brussels, but clear concern that these mounting tensions could amount to an all-out conflict.
Right, and what more do we know about the situation on the borders as of now? Reports have been saying that the troop buildup is at the highest level since 2014.
Yeah, we're hearing some 40,000 troops there, according to some reports, with Moscow saying that this is about military exercises, but that the force numbers would likely be reduced within a couple of weeks. Some analysts here saying that this is about testing Moscow. This is a test from Vladimir Putin to test his new US counterpart, Joe Biden. We know, of course, as I say, that there will be the arrival of those 2 US warships in the Black Sea, with Moscow saying those ships should stay well away, and that Moscow would take steps to assess the threat to its security if indeed those ships came too close. So again, signs of real tension, a very serious build-up of troops in the Donbass region, and as I say, those ships due to arrive any day now. Meanwhile, President Biden has reached out to Putin, inviting him to a summit which could be held reportedly in Finland later on this year, essentially to improve relations, to address a number of the complex issues between Moscow and Washington, not least this latest crisis in Ukraine. I mean, that is something that again, some analysts are saying here is sort of clever politics from Joe Biden, with an awareness of how much President Putin enjoys these summits, enjoys the photo opportunities with Western leaders, and a clear sense that European allies would be in support of those efforts to resolve this with diplomacy.
Lucy Hove, thanks very much for those details and updates as of now. WION now available in your country. Download the app now. Get all the news on the move.